Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's in the Tube, ActionX's show where we normally review things in the world of television, whether that is reviewing episode by episode of currently airing shows, season by seasons of wrapped up shows, or shows that are way too long in the air, or doing these quick impressions, where normally I watch a show within the last 3 months. I give my quick impressions on it. It's not a full proper review. It's more like these are just me getting my thoughts out there. It's a very bite-sized episode of the show. Normally we do longer episodes, like our episode reviews or like our hour-long season reviews. Normally we're about to start up Doctor Who next week again. But this week I want to do Star Wars: The Bad Batch. Finally, after many, many years, I was always a fan of Star Wars since... I want to say when YouTube wasn't that so freaking, secure and just like everything just gets blocked off, anything. Back in the glory days, I used to binge all 6 movies, not caring anything about the world. And then the Clone Wars anime series came out on Cartoon Network, and I loved it as a kid. I kept watching until I think it stopped airing on season 5 on Cartoon Network. I missed season 6 for quite a while. Then eventually I got Netflix and I got it all. Then of course Disney bought over, and then the rest is history. On my history on that. But when I wasn't like, here's the thing with me about being a Star Wars fan. I am a fan when it's time. For me, like MCU, like I am a fan 24/7. Well, that is now currently No Way Home, or after that Doctor Strange, Hawkeye, etc. When it comes to Star Wars, I care about it a lot. Like when they release a new trailer, or when they have something cool to announce, and then or when a new movie comes out, or when the next show's on Disney Plus, I will talk about it. I will be excited for it because I am a fan. It's just that my levels aren't to that 24/7 period. If that makes sense. I do have friends such as one of my close friends. It's just George. He loves Star Wars way more than me, and he's a little bit more ironed down on that compared to me. So, about last year when the pandemic started, I decided to finally give the Filoni verse, excluding Resistance and it's not related to that, but Visions as well. I decided to watch all the Star Wars TV, the animated shows, because I wanted to. I had the time now, and ironically, I did not have the time nor the patience. I wanted to do it properly, but first I wanted to do Rebels first because I said fuck it, Rebels. I never went past season 2, so I was like, I'm gonna go to season 3, season 4. I did that, then I went to Clone Wars, but then what the thing with Clone Wars is that, and this was kind of like a messed up thing they did back at the time. My tea is over there. I'm gonna go grab that. I remember when they were doing Clone Wars and just the episode orders were always out of date. It was hard to keep track of at times. So for me, when I was eventually going in on Netflix, I did the traditional like binging in order, but for me, like I wanted to be a more consistent version. So I actually went to the official Star Wars website, and they had like a complete like, here's the exact order. And it got so frustrating because like the earlier seasons, you would have these story arcs where the beginning was in season 3, but then the middle was in season 1, and it was like just all over the place. And that was difficult for me to keep track of. And then I think once I reached season 3, I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna take a break, go do something else, which I did. And then finally, something clicked for me earlier this year. I was like, I want to get this off my queue list. I want to get this out. And I did want to see the final season of Clone Wars. And all this is going to make sense eventually. So I finally did it. I persevered. I got through it. I finally got to the final season. And first of all, that animation, God, beautiful as hell. Getting to see our characters like in true like high quality 2020 animations quality was amazing to see. And the first 4 episodes were about the Bad Batch, which is a group of defective clones that were not... They were defective, but they still had purpose. They still had usefulness. But they were never really meant to be suited for a regular clone troop squadron, so they decided to give them their own squadron handle. And honestly, when I was watching those episodes, I thought they were an okay group. I don't believe at the time they were even thinking about giving them their own show. I don't believe so. But then eventually, once I think there was potential here, because when it comes to the Star Wars timeline, they have explored so many different eras right now. But something that I honestly wanted to see personally, and this was just not even related to Bad Batch, when I started to learn more about the lore and like the history. We've seen a lot about like the last years of the Empire's reign, but we never got to see how it started up. on screen. Whether that was in a movie or whether that was in a show, we never got to see that. We usually get a time skip, like at least maybe past the first decade, you don't see anything. And then when you get to that second decade, that's when like things are really starting to like, piece together there. That's when you start to see it. But then when you get to that, and it's like, I wanted to see that at some point. The Bad Batch delivered that to me. So when I finally got to the actual show of it, the characters themselves really, they were okay. Wrecker was fun. It's been a little bit of a while here, and also connecting it back to the Clone Wars, and that was one of the glory things about binging the show, was that there was another character called Fives. No, it was Echo. He was killed one time, and then they thought he was killed again, and then he came back, and now he's one of the stars of the show. And even everyone else, like, it was, for me, that was the hook. That was the hook in there, and you could probably start the actual official review by this point. Purpose-wise for the story, I loved it. I wanted to see, what does the world look like adjusting to the Empire? Because for us, as Star Wars fan, for us, it was a tragedy, seeing the Jedi Order fall at the end of Episode 3, or whatever other medium you saw the events of Order 66 from. That was very tragic for us as viewers. But in reality, in the world of Star Wars, it was very mixed, the response. Obviously, every one of the, who actually knew the Jedi and their close, ally were like us. They were in distraught. Everything's changing now for the worse. But for the rest of the galaxy, this was like, oh my God, this is great. We're going to switch over to an empire. And for us, when someone says empire, we obviously mean it's a negative thing. But keep in mind, in history, we've had plenty of empires before without our own history. And not all of them were bad. That was just the regime system it was. And depending on who you're talking to, I believe there will be still some people in this current society that would agree maybe an empire would be better, having the leadership of one person do the ordinances, having a committee of things. I'm in more of the lines of having a council of defining the direction and making those decisions. That's what I prefer. I don't really like it when one person rules all over the others. But at the time period, they just finished up a war, and they were like, "What the heck is next? How do we make sure we don't go through another war again?" Then the Empire started. And just seeing slowly, and I hope we get to see this next season with season 2, slowly getting to see the changes and getting to see how things are, arising and transitioning from, well, at least for me in terms of the animation side of things, how do we go from Clone Wars, a Clone Wars world to a Bad Batch world, as we start to see it. There's a couple of episodes in there, and I won't spoil anything past the first episode, but there's a couple of episodes where we really get to see things are changing. There are new procedures, new protocols, new rules all over the place. And it was so weird because getting to see a direct response was something I was never expecting. Because again, we get to see the Emperor's speech of, we're an empire now, that's it. And then on our end, we just see, Obi-Wan defeat Anakin, who becomes Darth Vader. Luke and Leia are born, and that's all we get to see from that initial point. That time period, that's the furthest we get to it. Now with this show, we get to see way more than that. But mostly that there was obviously it could have just be how does the Empire get transitioned from the Republic? That's not the show. It's this show is the Bad Batch living in that. What is their direct response? Because for so long, yeah, they are this dysfunctional group, but they did get the job done when they were under the Republic's order. Now it's the Empire. What do they do? And no doubt about it, they're heroes. Well, in extent, they're heroes. I'm not saying they're perfect, and I guess that's just the analogy that we're living in this society. No one is ever a true 100% hero. You're always going to have those shades of well, there's this contradiction or something of that sort. But however, even when I was watching that, I still looked at what they were doing. I'm I'm enjoying this a lot. I really am. Giving them the material, and also shout out to D. Barclay Baker, who voices all the clone troopers. He was doing so much of the heavy lifting this time around, where before he was just supporting, for the main Jedi, for the main characters of Clone War. Now he's just front and center voicing 5 troopers on a week-to-week basis. And that was honestly shout out to him. I always had a chance to meet him at New York Comic Con last month, but sadly scheduling things happen, and then I forgot about it. And then by the time I finally got to the signing hall, he was already doing something else, or he just disappeared. So I couldn't meet him, sadly. One day I'll get to meet him, but that was really unfortunate. But anyway, continuing on from that point, the story of that really catapults from that, and they do a little bit of a time jump. It's not that major in scope, but there is a little bit of a time jump because there's only so much like change you can do throughout a galaxy. Because if it was in a small location like in a city, you can instantly like, boom, overnight, we're done, we're changing it over. Like, this is the new order. Not that new order, but you know what I mean. Then you start to see like, it takes time for like the galaxy to really like feel the ramifications of what happened in episode 3 and obviously what Order 66. It takes a while for that to happen. But then when we finally do get to see it, that's when the main events of the series get catapulted, where there's another clone trooper. I think they call her a Purity, or like, you know, a very close replica of the original clone. Her name's Omega, and continuing the Filoniverse tradition of having that very adorable, like, kid-like, you know, sidekick that everyone's gonna love and everyone's gonna trend. Oh god, I put that down the wrong throat. Oh god. Sorry, my eyes are watering now. Like, oh damn. Apologies. Continuing on. Omega was, obviously, when you're doing this so many times, like, she was very, you know, interesting. You know, I'm pretty sure that there's way more to her than meets the eye. No pun intended with Transformers there. But I can tell she's going to serve a higher purpose in this show. Whether or not she's going to be the key to, like, figuring things out. But at the end of the day, I feel like every series, you know, this is another family show where certain events happen, so the Bad Batch kind of lose one of their own, and then Omega comes in, kind of fills in that hole for them a little bit. Also, shout out that the first episode was like a freaking movie. Like, that was like freaking perfect, just the way to start it off. I love it so much. But also, again, the animation, oh my god, Clone Wars was so beautiful, but then when you go to the animation of the Bad Batch, it was just like, oh my god, they keep freaking improving it over the years. And also, this isn't a spoiler, but like freaking Carla Tortatelli from Cheers voices a character in the Star Wars universe. I'm like, I love it. I love this so much. What are the odds? But in terms of, but if I am praise aside, like I do have some critiques on the show. It's not perfect. It's the first season of a show, so you're mostly setting up the world, and in this case you're doing double the work, because not only do you have to like bring us back into the Star Wars world, but you also have to like paint it to the picture of like, this is a transitional period where the Republic is becoming the Empire. A lot of things are changing. There are no more heroes. Like, the Jedi were the heroes of our story at this time point, and they're gone. Well, majority are gone, and then most of them are in hiding, so they're not going to do anything right now. This is not like a Rebels or like Rogue One type of situation where like, oh, now the heroes are good. No, there are no heroes. There isn't. Like, no matter what you pitch the Bad Batch, they're just doing what's beneficial to their own group and for their means, like saving Omega or saving one of their own. That's for them the good thing they're doing, but it's not beneficial to the entire galaxy. They're not even thinking of that. There is a line in the middle point of the season where one of the people start talking about, we should form a rebellion. We need to fight back. And for me, I'm like, no, this is way too early. No, like, obviously, like, this is the early idea of like, we need to fight back against this, but there's absolutely no, like, because for us, like, we know like that's not going to happen for a very long time. Like, hell, I'm only 24 years old. Like, my first 20 years were so freaking long. Imagine that in the Star Wars universe. That's going to take a while. It's not quick and easy. But I think that also gives a little bit of a uniqueness to the show, because the Clone Wars, you were watching how Anakin slowly fell to the dark side and how the things go to the point where like you were filling into the gaps. Like, how do we get from characters from episode 2 to episode 3? They're filling in the gaps. But at the end of the day, you know it's all going to crumble. And Rebels, they were setting up the rise. Like, they were not going to save the day. They were not going to be the ones to really help defeat Vader, defeat the Emperor. But they were very active in the contributions to get to that point. Here, this is another rising show, but just not in the case of like, we're getting to see the Empire rise and seeing every single, like, I don't know how the Bad Batch is going to end. I really don't know. I really hope it's able to tell the story it needs to tell. But for me, I'm not going to view it as like we're going to end the show with how did they get into the resistance, or not the resistance, the rebellion. That's not what this show's going to be. It's not. I want the show to be more along the lines of this is the story of just these characters trying to survive and then eventually maybe realizing they're not going to survive. I mean, yeah, in Rebels, you get to see Rex and some other clones like survive, but the Bad Batch is in there, so what happens to them? Like, that's the unique, that's the specialty of the Star Wars universe. Like, we're at the point where there's so many characters, and you really want to know what happens to them next, and there's so many mediums you could tell that story, but at the same time, it's all about, like, what is the story necessary for them to come back in. Hell, the Bad Batch could literally end with, like, them all dead because of the Empire. That could be the case. Will it be the case? I don't know. It's still too early on. And that's, for me, like, I'm excited for this new journey because I want this show to keep going on for years to come. I want to hit my 30s and then eventually start talking about when does the show wind down. That's what I want to see. But right now, like, just season 1 alone, I think they just do the best job they could of, bringing in these characters from Clone Wars, putting them in this unique situation where they're trying to deal with this transitional period, as well as beginning to understand what is the specialty of Omega, and what it really mean to be like an actual comrade. Because before, like, they had the assistance of the Republic. It's just on them right now. They have no support whatsoever, so they have to create this new support system. But again, the uniqueness of the story is like you just don't know where it's going to go. Like, you think it's going to go in one direction, but it can go another direction. That's the thing, because Clone Wars and Rebels, we know how those were going to end. Bad Batch, we don't know how to end. I highly doubt they're going to go through the entire 20 years of the Empire's reign. I don't think they're going to do that at all. I think it's going to end somewhere between the end of the first decade. But I want to see how they're going to tell their story. I want to see it. That's what makes it different from the other Filoni shows. Like, they were all leading to something from the movie. This is not. That's what makes it special, and I really can't wait to see where season 2 picks things up next year when we come back. But yeah, that's all I got to say about it. The characters, again, all funny as hell, but they all have their own unique charm. And again, shout out to D. Barclay Baker for giving each clone, especially this deep into his run as a clone trooper, so many different layers, so many different elements. And I just can't wait to see where things go from here. I really can't. I can't wait for season 2. So, but for me, that's just my quick impressions on the Bad Batch. It's, for me, it's enjoyable. I like it a lot. There's a couple of nitpicks, of course, because it's a season 1 show. But regardless of that, I can't wait to see more. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of Star Wars: The Bad Batch? And when are you excited to see season 2? I think that's going to do for me today, everyone. So if you're unaware, this has been What's the Do from ActionX, talking about Star Wars: The Bad Batch as a quick impressions. Normally, What's the Do, we do Nancy Drew, Walker Season 2, Doom Patrol, Stargirl, and Rookie episode reviews every week, normally on the ActionX channel, so please check that out if any of those shows interest you, or if you like me talking about show. I talk way more in depth on other shows when I'm able to, so please go check that out when you can. And yeah, but if you also want to see more of us, please subscribe to us on youtube.com/ActionXvideos. Ring that bell for notification when our next review is live. Like, favorite, share this review if you want to, and as well as follow us on social media to stay up to date with any sort of updates that we might have for our channel. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to talk to people about the Bad Batch. But until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.